Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to our live stream. This is for English learning, so we'll use simple words to help you improve your listening and speaking skills. I'm Alexa.
And I'm Alex. We're so excited to talk with you today about a fascinating topic, the moon. The moon has so many amazing facts, and we'll explore them in a fun and easy way. Let's begin.
The moon is a giant rock in the sky. It moves around the Earth, and we can see it almost every night. Did you know the moon does not make its own light? The sunlight reflects off it, which makes it shine. Sometimes the moon looks full and round, but other times it looks like a small slice. This change is called the moon's phases.
That's right. The moon has 8 main phases, like the full moon, new moon, and crescent moon. These phases happen because of the way the sun's light hits the moon. It takes about 29.5 days for the moon to go through all its phases. That's why we call it a lunar month. Isn't it cool how the moon changes its shape every night?
Yes, it's so interesting. People have been looking at the moon for thousands of years. Many cultures have stories and myths about the moon. Some people even say the moon can affect our moods or sleep. But one real effect of the moon is the tides in the ocean. The moon's gravity pulls the water, making the ocean rise and fall.
Exactly. The moon's gravity is like a magnet for water. That's why we have high tides and low tides. Without the moon, the Earth's oceans would not move the same way. It's amazing how something so far away can have such a big impact on our planet. By the way, did you know astronauts have walked on the moon?
Yes, astronauts have walked on the moon. The first time was in 1969 during the Apollo 11 mission. Neil Armstrong was the first person to step on the moon. He said, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." It was a huge moment in history, and people all over the world watched it live on TV.
That's such an inspiring story. When astronauts walk on the moon, they wear special spacesuits. The moon has no air, so they need the suit to breathe. The suit also protects them from extreme temperatures because the moon is very hot during the day and very cold at night. The moon is so different from Earth.
Yes, it's so different. The moon has no water, no plants, and no animals. It's just rocks and dust. But scientists study the moon to learn more about space and how planets form. They bring back moon rocks to study. These rocks are billions of years old, which helps us learn about the history of the solar system.
That's true. And did you know that the moon has craters? These are holes in the surface made by space rocks called meteors. When meteors hit the moon, they create big craters. The moon has no atmosphere to protect it, so it has many craters. Some of these craters are so big you can see them with your eyes from Earth.
Yes, those craters are really amazing. One of the biggest craters is called the South Polacan Basin. It's about 2,500 kilometers wide. Imagine how big the meteor must have been to make such a huge crater. Scientists believe that studying craters can tell us more about the moon's past.
Another fun fact about the moon is that it controls eclipses. A lunar eclipse happens when the Earth comes between the sun and the moon, casting a shadow on the moon. A solar eclipse is the opposite. It happens when the moon blocks the sun's light. Both are amazing to watch, but you need to be in the right place at the right time.
Lunar eclipses are really special. The moon can look red during an eclipse. This is called a blood moon. It happens because Earth's atmosphere bends the sunlight, and the red light reaches the moon. People think the blood moon is magical, and some cultures have special traditions during this time.
That's so fascinating. Speaking of traditions, did you know some countries celebrate the moon with festivals? For example, in China, people celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival. They eat mooncakes and look at the full moon with their families. It's a time for happiness and togetherness.
Yes, and the moon also plays a big role in calendars. Many cultures use the lunar calendar. which is based on the moon's phases. For example, the Islamic calendar and the Chinese calendar follow the moon. It's amazing how something in the sky can help us organize time.
That's right. The moon has been so important to humans for centuries. Even today, people dream of exploring the moon more. Space agencies like NASA are planning new missions to the moon. They want to build a base on the moon where astronauts can stay and do more research.
That's exciting. A moon base could help us prepare for bigger missions, like going to Mars. The moon is like a stepping stone for exploring deeper into space. Scientists could learn how to live in space for long periods of time by practicing on the moon. It's a big step for humanity.
It really is, but living on the moon would be hard. There's no air, no food, and no water. Everything would have to be brought from Earth. Scientists are thinking about ways to make air and water on the moon. They're even studying if they can grow plants there.
Growing plants on the moon would be amazing. Plants could give astronauts food and oxygen. Scientists have already grown plants in space on the International Space Station. If it works on the moon, it could help us live there for longer periods. The moon could become our second home.
That's a great thought. The moon may also have resources we can use. Scientists believe there's ice at the moon's poles. This ice could be turned into water for drinking and even fuel for rockets. If we can use the moon's resources, it would make space exploration easier and cheaper.
Yes, and the moon is also important for science. It helps us study how the Earth and moon affect each other. For example, the moon's gravity slows down Earth's rotation a little bit every year. Without the moon, Earth's days would be much shorter, and our planet would be very different.
That's true. The moon also stabilizes Earth's tilt. This tilt is what gives us seasons. Without the moon, the tilt might change a lot, and the weather on Earth would be unpredictable. So, the moon doesn't just look beautiful, it also helps make life on Earth possible.
Yes, the moon is so important, and it's wonderful how the moon inspires us. Many poems, songs, and stories talk about the moon. People look at the moon and feel peaceful. It reminds us how big and beautiful the universe is. Even though the moon is far away, it feels close to our hearts.
I agree. The moon is not just a rock in space, it's a symbol of dreams and exploration. It shows us that there's so much more to discover. Whether we're looking at it from Earth or walking on its surface, the moon connects us to the universe and inspires us to learn more.
Speaking of how the moon inspires us, have you ever heard of the saying, "Shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll land among the stars"? It means we should aim high in life, even if things don't go as planned. The moon has always been a symbol of hope, dreams, and possibilities for people all over the world.
That's a beautiful thought, Alexa. The moon also inspires creativity in art. Many famous paintings show the moon as a central theme. For example, Vincent van Gogh's painting Starry Night features a beautiful moon in a dreamy night sky. The moon has always been a source of inspiration for artists.
Yes, and it's not just art. The moon has been the center of many movies and books. Science fiction stories often imagine people living on the moon or traveling to it. These stories make us think about what's possible in the future. They encourage us to explore and learn more.
That's so true, and the moon has even influenced music. There are so many songs about the moon, like Fly Me to the Moon by Frank Sinatra. Musicians often write about the moon because it feels magical and romantic. The moon seems to connect with our emotions in a special way.
Yes, the moon is so inspiring. And did you know that some people believe the moon can affect their feelings? For example, during a full moon, some people say they feel more energetic or restless. While there's no scientific proof, it's interesting to think about how the moon might influence us.
That's a good point, Alexa. The moon has been surrounded by myths and legends for centuries. Some people believed the moon had special powers. For example, in ancient times, people thought the moon could heal or guide them. These beliefs show how important the moon has always been to humans.
Exactly. The moon also plays a big role in astrology. Some people believe the moon affects their personality or future. They look at the moon's phases or position in the sky to make decisions. While it's not based on science, it's still fascinating how much meaning people give to the moon.
Yes, and in science, the moon has taught us so much. For example, studying the moon helped scientists understand gravity. When astronauts walked on the moon, they noticed it had less gravity than Earth. That's because the moon is smaller and has less mass. They even jumped higher there.
That must have been so fun for the astronauts. The moon's gravity is about 1/6 of Earth's gravity. That's why they could hop and move so easily. It's also why astronauts' equipment, like rovers and spacesuits, had to be specially designed to work in such low gravity.
Yes, designing equipment for the moon is a big challenge. Even building a spacecraft to get to the moon takes a lot of planning. The spacecraft has to carry astronauts, supplies, and fuel. It also needs to be strong enough to handle the trip through space and the landing on the moon.
And landing on the moon isn't easy. The moon has no air, so there's no atmosphere to help slow down the spacecraft. That's why engineers use rockets to control the landing. It's amazing how much teamwork and technology go into making a safe trip to the moon.
It really is, and once the astronauts land, they need a place to stay. They can't stay outside for too long because of the moon's harsh environment. That's why scientists are thinking about building shelters on the moon called lunar habitats. These could protect astronauts from heat, cold, and radiation.
Yes, lunar habitats are a big idea for the future. They might even use moon materials to build them. For example, the moon has a lot of dust called regolith. Scientists think they could use this dust to make bricks for building. It's like using the moon to build on the moon.
That's so clever, and in addition to habitats, scientists are thinking about creating energy on the moon. Solar panels could collect sunlight to make electricity. The moon gets a lot of sunlight, so it's a perfect place for solar energy. This energy could power machines and keep astronauts safe.
Yes, and speaking of sunlight, did you know the moon doesn't always look the same brightness? When the moon is high in the sky, it can look very bright. But when it's close to the horizon, it can look orange or red. This happens because the Earth's atmosphere bends the light.
That's interesting, and sometimes the moon looks bigger when it's near the horizon. This is called the moon illusion. It's not really bigger, it just looks that way because of the way our brains see it. Even though it's an illusion, it makes the moon look so beautiful.
The moon is full of surprises, isn't it? And did you know there's a special kind of moon called a supermoon? A supermoon happens when the moon is closer to Earth in its orbit, making it look bigger and brighter. It's an amazing sight to see and happens a few times a year.
Yes, and there's also something called a blue moon. A blue moon doesn't actually look blue. It's just the name for the second full moon in a single month. That's why people say once in a blue moon to mean something rare. The moon has so many fun facts and stories.
It really does. And the more we learn about the moon, the more questions we have. What other secrets does the moon hold? Can we ever live there? The moon shows us that there's always more to discover, and it inspires us to keep exploring the universe. It really does. And the more we learn about the moon, the more questions we have. What other secrets does the moon hold? Can we ever live there? The moon shows us that there's always more to discover, and it inspires us to keep exploring the universe. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing topics like this.
Yes, the moon is truly fascinating, and there's so much more we can learn. From its role in science to its inspiration in art and culture, the moon continues to capture our imagination. Thank you for joining us today, and remember to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our live streams or discussions.